Hey guys, Jamie with the Summer Rain channel, welcome back. So today we're going to go ahead and make a foaming bath salt. So you might be like, hey, what is this? A foaming bath salt actually combines two of my favorite things. So we're going to go ahead and take Epsom salt and we're going to combine it with a bubble bath, and we're going to make a salt that also has a bubble bath in it. I am absolutely in love with this. I actually thought about it when I was in the tub. So I was taking an Epsom salt bath and I was like, wait, can I add bubble bath to this, or is that just too much? And I decided to come up with a formula that has both in there at the same time. I did go ahead, I put the full recipe down in the description box below. I also put a link to my blog. So on my blog, I go a little bit more in depth about all the ingredients, why we use them, everything like that, substitutes, things like that. So if you want to swap out some ingredients, that is on the blog. So I did want to show you something. I made this, and I don't know how well you can see it, about a week ago. And as you can see, it's not clumping at all in here. It's still very loose. What we don't want to do is we don't want to make a product that once you get in here, it turns into a big clump of salt, which sometimes happens. So what I did was I very carefully picked the ingredients, and I used ingredients to ensure that when we put this in here, it stays in a very loose, very not clumped together form. So although this is a very simple recipe, it is an absolutely amazing one. Without further ado, let's just dive in and make it.
So here are all the ingredients that we're going to use for our foaming bath salt. The first one is going to be Epsom salt. Now this is just unscented Epsom salt. Now I did run it through the mortar and pestle just to kind of grind it up a little bit. I really wanted a finer consistency for my foaming bath salt than what you get with Epsom salt. Now you don't have to do that. That's just the consistency that I wanted. So you can either go ahead and use a mortar and pestle to kind of grind this up to a finer salt, or you can leave it either as fine. The next salt that we're going to use is called dendritic salt. Now, the reason why we use this is this salt actually has a lower surface tension. Now, what that means is this salt is going to absorb a whole lot more of liquids than what Epsom salt is going to. And what that's going to do is go ahead and absorb our fragrance oil and our polysorbate 80, so we don't wind up with clumping in our container, right? The last thing we want to do is go through all the bother of making this only to have it turn into one giant clump in the container. Then I have some polysorbate 80. Now the reason why we use polysorbate is because we are using a fragrance oil. Without the polysorbate, the fragrance oil would just kind of float on top of your tub, and you really don't want that, right? You want it to mix in with the water. So we just use a little bit of that. To make this a foaming bath salt, we're going to need something that's going to create bubbles. Now I'm using SLSA, and this is actually what's going to create the bubbles in your bubble bath. And lastly, I have a bit of mica powder. Now the thing that you want to note about mica powder is it will tint your bath water a little bit, but it's not going to give you a super deep color. So if you wanted something that's going to give your bath water more of a deeper, darker, richer color, you're going to want to go more with a lake dye than you are a mica powder. However, I absolutely love the shimmer that you get with mica powder. I love the way it looks in the container, and I'm okay with my bath water not being super vibrant. Just a little tint is fine for me. So the first thing that I'm going to do is go ahead and add the fragrance oil in with the dendritic salt. At the same time, I'm going to go ahead and add the polysorbate 80. And I'm just going to go ahead and scrape the sides here, make sure we get it all out. And then we'll just go ahead, we'll get that mixed in there really well. And like I said, this salt has a lower surface tension, which is going to go ahead, it's going to absorb a whole lot more than a regular salt would. So we're really going to try to get this to absorb as much of the fragrance oil and the polysorbate 80 that we can before we add the other ingredients. The other ingredients will also absorb a little bit more of this. So as you can tell, it is still a little bit wet, but the other ingredients will absorb some more of the liquid. So SLSA is our surfactant. This is what creates the bubbles, right? But it is kind of poofy. So when you put it in here, you might want to put on a mask or something like that. Just be very careful because the fine particles can kind of poof up and get in your face. Now when I'm stirring this, I just stir a little bit slower. Take some caution so I'm not making it all poof up into the air and get into my lungs. And as you can see, that's absorbing a lot of the liquid also. Now that we have this mixed up, I'm just going to go ahead and pop it into a bigger mixing container. The one that I'm using is not going to be quite big enough to add in the Epsom salt. Now we're going to go ahead and add in our Epsom salt. Now I'm just going to add a bit of it and then I'll come back in with the rest. And I just swapped out spatulas. This one just is a little bit better for this heavier duty mixing. Now, as you can see, I'm kind of coming in, I'm breaking up the clumps as I'm mixing it. That's why I didn't add all of the Epsom salt in at once. Then we'll just add the remaining Epsom salt. Now, when you're mixing, you really want to make sure you're getting down to the bottom and pulling it up and getting the edges, just making sure that we don't have any clumps of like wet salt in here. And this is completely done at this point. The colorant is completely optional, but I'm going to go ahead and add it. Now the blue that I'm using is aquamarine. And same thing, we'll just go in there, give it a really good mix. Now just to lighten that up a little bit, I'm adding a blue pearl dry color. And I'll mix that in. And now that we have this completely mixed up, we'll go ahead and pop it into our container. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to pour this into your container. Now, you're not going to want to like pack it in there really tight. Just pour it in your container. You need a little bit of room to make sure it doesn't compact on you. And to use your foaming bath salts, it is super easy. All you're going to do is go ahead and use it like you would use a regular bubble bath. So you're going to go ahead and turn the faucet on, allow the water to run, pop your bath salts in there, and you'll notice right away that you're going to get a whole lot of bubbles along with the Epsom salt that's in your tub.
I really hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoy making and using your bath salts as much as I did. Bye!